Tonight, crowds return to major outdoor events. Around 60,000 fans have started arriving at Celtic Park, where gates have opened early for checks and vaccine passports or negative lateral flow tests.
An update on further easing of restrictions is expected tomorrow. Also making the headlines, the life-changing operation for this little girl who was told she'd never walk again.
We look at the shocking state of Glasgow's potholes, the repair backlog and the rising costs for motorists.
And we're out in search of Hollywood stars as filming for 3 film and television projects get underway. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. After weeks of restrictions, tonight, finally a major step forward. Full crowds are back at large outdoor events. Tens of thousands of football fans will be flocking to Celtic Park tonight to cheer on their teams from the stands in the first live top-flight match this year. 50%, that's 30,000, must prove they're eligible to be there. And that means showing their up-to-date vaccine passport or a negative lateral flow test.
Turnstiles are opening 2 hours earlier to get the fans through. In a moment, we'll be live outside the ground and at Holyrood, where we're expecting further easing of restrictions to be announced tomorrow. But first, this from our reporter, Ronnie Charters.
Tonight, we'll see the first major relaxation of COVID restrictions in Scotland since the emergence of the Omicron variant. Here at Celtic Park, around 60,000 fans are expected to attend as Celtic take on Hibs in the Scottish Premiership, as the restrictions on large outdoor events in Scotland are lifted. Fans, though, must provide proof of their vaccine status, which for the first time includes 2 doses of the vaccine plus the booster jab if your second dose was more than 4 months ago. These barriers have been erected, extra staff have been put in place. One must show your vaccine certificate and then you are free to make your way up towards the stadium. And once through the barriers, supporters are able to make their way to turnstiles like these, which will be open 2 hours before kick-off to avoid queues and congestion. The club hope that all who attend tonight's match still take a lateral flow test regardless of your vaccine certificate, and indeed the rules on masks and social distancing will still apply within the stadium.
It's absolutely amazing to get back to the football. After 3 weeks, it feels like 6 months, you know what I mean? It's been that long.
To be honest, this is my life, basically. I've missed it. I agree with what they've done with the 3-week early break because you want fans. You've seen it all last season with no fans.
The rules also allow away fans to return to stadia. These Hibs supporters making the trip across the M8 for the game tonight.
I've had all my jacks, so I'm happy with that. I think myself, they've just got to get on with it now and let us get on with the football and everything else, because you can't keep closing places.
It's not just about the football, it's a social thing. It's more or less most of your life, isn't it? Family, friends.
The daily rate for positive coronavirus tests in Scotland has almost halved in a week, according to the latest stats. There were 6,221 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. This time last week, that figure stood at over 11,000. But as 60,000 people gather together for the first time this year, a word of caution.
Crowds is what this virus likes. So that could be the bathrooms, it could be the catering, it could be whatever individual design of the stadium. So you might want to put your mask on to do that. You might want to just avoid the really busy times. So just be thoughtful that you might not be worried about the virus because you're 24, vaccinated and have already had it or something. But just remember, there's some people around you there who maybe haven't been out as much as you.
The statue of Jock Stein stands proudly outside Celtic Park, engraved with the famous saying, "Football without fans is nothing." The new measures will undoubtedly add pressures at the turnstiles as more checks are enforced. But for clubs across the country, it's hoped football without fans is a thing of the past. Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Well, Ronnie is outside Celtic Park now. And Ronnie, the turnstiles opened just over 15 minutes ago. How's it looking?
Yeah, John, safe to say fans are turning up here in a jovial atmosphere. They're back at the place that they love to be, locked out during the festive period because of those restrictions. But tonight, the first night, they're allowed to back in and to watch the team that they love. As you mentioned, 15 minutes ago, these turnstiles were open, but fans had been flocking here way before that. In an operational sense, signs are pretty clear as to what Celtic are doing. They put on many more COVID checkers, as you were, as to checking the passports and whatnot. Queues are fine at the moment as well, so it really does seem that people have heeded the warning. They've arrived early, and this is the first real step on a brighter future for many people, John.
Ronnie at Celtic Park, thank you.
Well, the First Minister will make a statement to the Scottish Parliament tomorrow afternoon, and Nicola Sturgeon is expected to lift more restrictions. To our political editor, Colin Mackay now. And Colin, what are you expecting?
Well, as Ronnie was just saying, the case numbers aren't as bad as had been expected right now. In fact, hospital numbers of COVID patients actually came down overnight. Now, just by a handful to 1,557, but that's the first time that they've actually fallen since before Christmas. Ministers are actually expecting worse figures tomorrow in terms of accident emergency waiting times. They fear that they could be facing the worst ever performance in Scotland on that tomorrow. So that shows that the NHS is still under pressure. But the First Minister is preparing to make that announcement tomorrow that more restrictions will be lifted from next Monday. I think the first ones to go in the next round will be table service in pubs and hospitality. That's the first thing that will be lifted. She's also looking at possibly lifting distancing. That's the next one. That could be next Monday as well. I think what the Cabinet will debate in much more detail, though, is what to do about theatres and indoor concerts, whether they should extend COVID passports to cover them and get them back to full numbers, just like you've got with outdoor crowds at the football tonight. What the Scottish Conservatives are demanding, though, is that all restrictions, except face masks, should be lifted by the end of the month.
These restrictions were put in place when we were really fearful about the Omicron variant, and the First Minister and the government have accepted themselves that their own projections in December have not been matched now, and therefore we have to adapt. We have to change course based on the public health advice and the figures and statistics that we have in front of us.
Now, in terms of business, we might see most of those restrictions that he's talking about lifted by the end of the month. But in other things like the vaccine passports, a guidance to work from home, masks in schools, the Scottish Government is not going to be lifting them anytime soon. We might also see tomorrow something else that Douglas Ross has been demanding, which is the return of indoor sports. I think we will see that. I'm not sure we're quite ready to see the return of nightclubs yet, but as things improve, we will see more restrictions lifted.
All right, more from you tomorrow, Colin. Thank you.
Well, from Holyrood to Westminster, and MPs have returned after a weekend spent dealing with the fallout caused by the row over Downing Street parties. It's likely to be another bruising week for Boris Johnson. Let's go now to our Westminster correspondent Catherine Sampson for an update. And Catherine, where are we with this tonight?
Right, so as it stands, we've seen 6 Conservative MPs publicly call for Boris Johnson to go, including, of course, Douglas Ross, the leader of the Scottish Conservatives. However, it takes 54 letters to go into a powerful backbench committee for a no-confidence vote to be triggered. Now, other MPs may have submitted their letters privately. We just don't know. I tried today to speak to the other Scottish Conservative MPs who haven't yet really come down one side or the other on this. I wasn't able to get any of them to come in front of a camera. That offer remains open. Of course, at Westminster, everyone is waiting now for Sue Gray, the civil servant, to issue her report. That might come this week. That might now edge slightly into the start of next week. What we have heard a lot today, though, is talk about what sort of strategy might be being formed to try and rescue Boris Johnson. Downing Street being forced to deny this is being called Operation Save Big Dog, and also denying that they've been trying to throw red meat to the Tory party faithful in the last 24 hours with headline-grabbing stories about migrant boats and, of course, the future of the BBC licence fee.
Catherine at Westminster, thank you. The amount of power generated from offshore wind in Scotland could increase more than tenfold over the coming years, meaning the country will produce around the same from sea-based turbines as the rest of Europe.
17 projects have been awarded parts of the seabed around the country to develop new wind farms, including, for the first time, a site on the central west coast. The ScotWind auction is worth almost £750 million, but there are concerns over the impact on wildlife. Sasha Spratt reports.
It's being dubbed as the most significant development in offshore wind energy to date. The awarding of these contracts alone is creating £700 million for the Scottish Government's kitty. But if all the projects go ahead, much more could be pumped into the economy.
It is truly historic in terms of the scale of the opportunity. Economically, this is massive. The estimate is that for every gigawatt of energy produced from these projects, there'll be £1 billion of investment in the supply chain.
17 sites in total have been identified, many of them concentrated around the northeast coast. But for the first time, the central west coast will see dozens of turbines on the horizon near Jura.
This is an opportunity for the whole of Scotland. Supply chain companies can set up anywhere in the country and be involved in the future of ScotWind and involved in the future of floating offshore technology.
It's that investment into the supply chain and local economies that many contractors will have their eyes on.
As we go through the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, there's a massive uptick in terms of resource we need to bring into the sector, and we need that commitment to get the funding in to do that.
It's been just a few months since the COP26 summit here, and this announcement will do a lot for Scotland's green credentials. But there are already some concerns over how these sites will impact other parts of our environment.
Developments like wind farms, if they're in the wrong places, can be bad for wildlife like birds and seabirds. The scale of them means that the impacts are likely to be quite big, and they're going into Scotland's marine environment, which is all we already know is quite degraded from historic over-exploitation.
The turbines won't be spinning for another 10 years, but with more than 24 gigawatts of electricity, it's enough to power Scotland 10 times over. Sasha Spratt, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland now, and campaigners are calling for adults with learning disabilities to be given the right to live in their own home in a community of their choice. It comes after figures from the Scottish Government revealed more than 1,000 adults with additional needs were sent to live outside of their own council area in 2019 due to a lack of available care.
More than 30 public and school libraries are to benefit from £400,000 in Scottish Government funding. The money will help libraries recover from the pandemic and put on free projects across the country, which include initiatives to tackle climate change and racism.
Any funding that we can have or that we can get access to help promote, particularly in areas of maybe kind of high deprivation where people don't have the same social chances, same opportunities as elsewhere. It's really helpful and useful for us.
The last 2 years have been a disaster, not just in libraries, but certainly for libraries and library users. So I think this money is very, very welcome. It'll be put to good use.
Now, a 6-year-old from Bathgate who was told she would never walk has taken her first steps after pioneering surgery in Poland. Arabella Green has arthrogryposis, a rare condition which causes joints to fuse in bent positions.
After her story was featured on STV News last year, an anonymous donor came forward to pay for the life-changing op. She arrived back home on Friday night, and our reporter Laura Alderman was there to meet her.
Back on home soil and in good spirits. When 6-year-old Arabella left Scotland 3 months ago, she couldn't walk. She suffers from arthrogryposis, an extremely rare condition which causes joints to stiffen and fuse together in bent positions. But after life-changing surgery at the Paley Institute in Poland, she's defied the odds and is up on her feet. This video, taken just hours before flying home, is the culmination of gruelling daily rehab exercises and sheer determination.
I've done lots of exercises.
Hard work.
Hard work, and then a couple of weeks later, I was on my feet, standing and walking with a hoist.
You got dizzy when you first stood up, didn't you?
I got so dizzy. I almost fell, but I catched myself. I feel like I was falling, but I wasn't. I was so dizzy.
Doctors in Scotland told her and Dad William she'd never walk. But after we featured Arabella's story last August, an anonymous Edinburgh couple donated £50,000, covering the cost of surgery in Poland.
She's now 5 years old. She can't sit up unaided, she can't crawl, she can't walk.
Arabella's mum Kat was so desperate for her daughter to walk, but she became frustrated trying to get help, and last year she took her own life.
That is the one thing that's missing, having Kat by our side, because she started the journey. Now I'm finishing it, and it doesn't feel right without her. But to be able to actually get out to Poland and get the doctor operating her and come back successful and say to the doctors here what could be done.
The pair are due to fly back to Poland for more treatment next month.
The journey's just started because it's been gruelling, to be honest with you, I'm not going to lie. But she's pushed through each week and she's got stronger and stronger and stronger, and I had to keep pushing her. I wouldn't let her give up. I couldn't let her give up. And I know Mum's probably been guiding her above, helping her get through this. And she's gathered so many supporters and she's inspired so many people.
And after a long journey, don't we all look forward to having some home comforts?
Some McDonald's maybe?
No, pot noodle.
Well deserved indeed, Ella. Laura Alderman, STV News.
Quite right. And if you want to know more about Arabella's life-changing journey, there's more on our website, stv.tv/news.
Now, it's shocking. That's how motorists have described the roads around Glasgow, as potholes are driving up the cost of repairs for car owners. Numerous potholes have re-emerged just days after one road was closed for repairs. Glasgow City Council say they've yet to catch up in the backlog of resurfacing since the first lockdown almost 2 years ago. Vanessa Taff reports.
This is the familiar thud drivers hear on a daily basis across the roads in Glasgow. It's a source of frustration for many motorists.
You kind of get to know them, they're like friends. You kind of have to skirt round the ones that you know. It's the ones that you come across unexpectedly and are a bit of a problem.
You can't tell how deep it is, and a couple of times I've actually went into a deep pothole myself and ended up with a flat tyre.
I can't remember it ever being as bad as what it currently is, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of repairs getting done, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse.
At this local garage, repairing cars damaged from potholes is a huge part of their daily workload.
Even the local roads just nearby, shocking. Loads of phone calls asking us to come round, collect a car that's maybe broken a spring, burst a tyre. Loads of recovery vehicles coming in every day. And if it's just a broken spring, usually it'll do more damage, burst a tyre, burst a mount. You are looking at a few £100 just depending on the car. Unfortunately, you can't plan ahead for a pothole. You know, it's just one of those things. And if it's raining, you don't see a pothole either, it just looks like a puddle.
This car just passed its MOT a couple of weeks ago. Unluckily for the driver, they had a pothole late at night. They're now facing a £350 repair bill. Glasgow City Council say there are ongoing works to maintain the roads, and the first lockdown in 2020 is still impacting repairs. With increasing priority being given to pedestrians, cyclists and public transport, it's yet another bump in the road for motorists. Vanessa Taff, STV News, Glasgow.
Now Philip has the weather.
Hello, good evening. Well, throughout today we've had high pressure centred across the whole of the UK, and high pressure doesn't necessarily mean wall-to-wall sunshine, but it has helped to give us a fine, dry and settled start to the week. Now that high pressure does lose its dominance by tomorrow, allowing frontal systems to move in from the northwest, so we will see a bit more in the way of cloud and some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Behind that though, high pressure is building once again from the west ahead of the weekend, so that will turn things more settled come Saturday and Sunday. Let's take a closer look at what's in store over the next couple of days though. Here is the forecast.
A light drizzle is coming in from the west. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Well, as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, there's very little change from what we've seen through the course of the day to begin with. We're holding on to the clear skies. That allows temperatures to drop away quite quickly. It's not until the early hours of tomorrow morning that we do start to see some thicker cloud just spilling in from the north and west. So where we've got the cloud, temperatures not dropping too far, lows of 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. Where we've got the clear skies, though, getting close to freezing. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, it will be a dry start to the day with variable amounts of cloud through the first half of the afternoon. But then later on, we do start to see these frontal systems nudging in from the west, bringing with it a bit of a breeze and outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. It's also dragging in milder air, though, so temperatures reaching highs of around 9 or 10 degrees Celsius, which is well above average for the time of year. By Wednesday, those fronts will have cleared southeastwards. It leaves behind overall a cloudy day with a mixture of some sunny spells in places. We're also in a northerly airflow, though, so we're dragging in colder air, so we'll be feeling a little bit chillier, temperatures reaching highs of 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. Now, Thursday's looking very similar. We've got high pressure dominating our weather, keeping things fine, dry and settled. A bit of a cloudy day to come, though. Temperatures down a couple of degrees once again from Wednesday, highs of 6 or 7. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels. Sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, Scotland is home to some major film and television shoots at the moment, with Good Omens, The Nancy Boys and, of course, Batgirl currently shooting in Glasgow and Edinburgh.
An array of Hollywood stars have been spotted in the streets and venues across the cities, as Laura Boyd has been finding out.
They've been setting the scene for the past few days, but today action was well underway in Glasgow's Parney Street in the Trongate area of the city, as film fans caught a glimpse of Batgirl herself, Leslie Grace. But she's not the only star to be spotted in town. Take Brendan Fraser, for instance. He too is starring in Batgirl, but he spiced up his weekend with a trip to Indian restaurant Bantawala on Glasgow's Byre Road.
He had a national favourite tikka masala along with a rice and a garlic naan. He was quite nice to meet with. It was unrecognisable at the start, but obviously with a few searches on Google and a wee check, is it him? It was nice to see that he was in Glasgow and enjoying one of our meals.
Also soaking up the sights of Glasgow's West End was Mad Men star Jon Hamm, who's currently filming Amazon Prime series Good Omens in Edinburgh. He was spotted taking a stroll through Glasgow's Botanic Gardens, happy to stop for a selfie with these excited fans.
And it seems like Ham is in fact a fan of chicken, because he popped into Bucksbar the other night, Jamie, didn't he?
It's just absolutely mental to see the star of Mad Men. Connor is one of our staff members. He's actually doing a Masters in drama, so he was getting loads of tips and stuff like that and acting and stuff, so it was pretty amazing for him.
And from Jon Hamm to being on the set here of Batgirl, how has that been for business?
It's brought loads of business from the film crew and stuff like that are coming to try and complete the menu before they go, and yeah, they all love it as well.
And we're loving seeing all these stars in Scotland. Laura Boyd, STV News.
Kellyanne was seen out having a kebab again on Friday.
Can't beat it, John, can't beat it.
Good night.
Good night.